Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to
Planes, Trains, and Comic
Books, the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, comics we want to read, and everything in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
I'm Matt Hansen.
And I'm John Johnson.
Oh, man, we got a good one today. But first, how's your week been, John?
It's been good. Do you think people are going to get tired of hearing us, like, the intro says it, and then we say...
I'm sure they will.
They'll tell us
I'm sure
eventually.
once they start actually telling us stuff, feel free to email and tell us you hate it. And then, maybe we'll stop it. But until then...
Every time
we're going to say the exact same thing. Maybe a little different every now and then, but there's a couple where we flub it. We're not perfect, but yeah. So your week was pretty good.
Yeah, overall, it wasn't good.
Cool. Yeah, my week was pretty good too. Pretty slow at work, which was nice. But it gave me plenty of time to read this book, which is Hellboy: Seed of Destruction, which is the first volume of the trade paper, or I guess the first volume of Hellboy ever. It has got the first 4 issues of Hellboy and a couple little 2 extra one-shots that were pretty fun to read. Yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about Hellboy, John?
This is my first, actual, I would say, other than our holiday one, this is our first, my real sit-down.
Right, because we read The Holiday for Christmas.
Yeah.
And then...
but actually, sitting down with Hellboy, my own experience really before that was the little snippets of things I've read here and there, little one shots or Hellboy with so and so, and then the movies.
Yeah.
And reading this one, I was like, oh wow, I see the first movie got their inspiration from, because this was pretty much the same story.
It's a very, very similar story to the first one. You can see where they pulled the taffy a bit and pulled out some storyline that wasn't there in the comic. But the general story of, and for all those who don't know, Hellboy, I'm sure you know, is a movie that came out in 2003-ish, around there. Had a couple sequels. Then they just tried to remake it earlier in 2019, and people did not like that one, but I did. I didn't mind it, but
I liked it too.
Yeah. So he is a character who it's an original creation, which is always fun.
By Mike
Mignola, who also does the artwork for most of the first trades of the series. Then he kind of lets other people do interpretations and stuff. But he created him as a joke at first, I guess. At a Comic-Con. In the back of this trade they had, there was a little drawing that said it was a big demon. And he didn't have the rock hand or anything, and it just said Hellboy on his belt. And he thought, it said, I just thought this was a funny thing. And it ended up being a big character or whatever. And so, yeah. So that ended up being how it started. And then, I guess he just built the idea from there. And I don't know if you noticed, but there's another writer on this book.
Yeah, was it John
Byrne.
Byrne, okay.
So I don't know whose idea it was. It might have been John Byrne, giving him hey, I'll help you write this, because I think it's a good idea too. Or if Mike Mignola just didn't have the confidence in his writing skills at this time, but he was it's the only one that he didn't write himself, kind of of the beginning stuff. So I'm not sure why it is, but you could definitely tell John Byrne wrote this. Do you know who John Byrne is?
I don't.
Okay, he's an old school writer from 70s, 80s, and there's a lot of exposition dialogue in this book, and that is why.
Okay.
Because in most other Hellboy books, it's just like the Christmas thing where they just let the art tell you stuff, and then he's like, well, gotta get to work.
That's true. There's beautiful art in this, and there's a lot of word boxes.
Text boxes
outside of.
Yeah, because it's not word balloons. It's inner
dialogue. It's
dialogue.
Hellboy's inner dialogue for most of it.
Yes, it is.
Him and A, pretty much.
Yeah, it's just Byrne was I know how to write a comic. Let me show you the gist of it, and then showed him
the old ways.
The old ways of writing comics, and then Mike Mignola was cool. I'll fill in the Hellboy speak and stuff. But there was definitely a lot of like, exposition that isn't normally in a Hellboy comic.
So we talked about this a little bit off camera.
Off camera.
Because we don't have a camera at all.
We don't film these. We're always off camera, John.
Yes. We talked off mic about this, we wanted to. I specifically was asking. I noticed it said that the script was written by him, and I was like, "Why?"
I think script meaning like I'm going to help you plot it, and then I'm also going to do the big setup text boxes. Like,
okay, I just didn't know if it had
in 1948 we were over here and we were doing this, and then something happened, and then it shows like our awesome artwork by Mike Mignola, and then it's like,
okay,
I was,
I didn't know. I assumed it meant like an
what it was.
outline of some sort, but I just didn't know if it meant like there was something else involved in it.
No, I think it just meant like he's helping Mike Mignola on his first comic.
Okay.
Like, here's a format or whatever. Because after that, like, it reads similar. Like, the dialogue obviously was Hellboy. There was nothing weird about like how anybody felt.
Yeah.
It just felt a little bit old school in the text boxes and stuff, which isn't in any of the other ones. But yeah, so this is pretty much the origin, which is also covered in the movie. So have you ever watched the movie of the original Hellboy from 2003?
Ron Perlman.
With Ron Perlman and Guillermo del Toro directing. It is very similar to that. There is Rasputin, and he is rising up, or he's trying to bring on the apocalypse from these seven demons that live in like a fifth dimension or whatever, and he raises Hellboy, and Hellboy is a key, and that will help him. There was like minor differences, and like most of that is just the movie trying to be more epic, pretty much.
Yeah, there wasn't a shoehorned love story in the comic here. Like,
true,
you could tell like there was a little bit of maybe something, but it wasn't really.
I'm trying to remember if there's even like a love story in Hellboy at all.
I don't
like between him and Liz.
I mean, you could tell he like cared about her, but it didn't.
Yeah, but not
it didn't translate to necessarily like I am in love with her like it did in the movie.
Right, and also her and Abe have like literally 5 seconds of screen time. Even her have like 2 seconds of screen time.
That's true.
Compared to Hellboy, or so it was kind of like bam, 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 bam. Like, it was really fast. It moved really fast. It was just like a good setup comic, like 4 issues. Like, here you go. Here's Hellboy. Here's what it's going to be.
Here's what he's about.
It's going to be occultic. It's going to be him fighting stuff that's like way out of his power range and all this shit. It's going to be him making like funny quips, and then he's going to have his team, and you know what their powers are now. And so it's kind of it's a good setup. It was fun, but it's not quite like a full fleshed out story. I didn't feel as much as some of the other books are. But what do you think?
I liked it a lot. You just had something to come to mind, and I was going to ask you if you knew if it was intentional. So in this, in the movie, he's fighting, goes up against Rasputin, and then Rasputin is also come about and is helping the Nazis, like in the beginning of the story as well. And I just wanted to know if you knew if that was something that Mike Mignola thought up, or if that is something that is maybe.
From what I understand, everything is like purely Mike Mignola as far as like the idea of how everything happened and whatnot.
Okay, I think it's a funny like trope in comic that you see is like everybody's gonna fight somebody, and it ends up. I mean,
I don't know if it was back when he made it though, because it was 1994.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like all of like.
Yes, I mean, I think this could be.
I
think this could be him going like, I'm gonna bring back, kind of like I'm gonna bring back. Okay, we got Rasputin, who's like a weird mystical Russian character. We got, and he's, I mean, the main bad guys are Nazis.
Rasputin and anything else, that's
right?
True.
So and then the main bad guys are like Nazis in the movie, but not in the comic. In the comic, they're like just pawns.
No, they're Nazis.
I know they're Nazis, but I'm saying they're just pawns. Like they're not the big bad like they are. Because in the movie, there's like what the dude named Cronin or whatever who like has the swords and shit.
Hands,
yeah. And then that dude just dies or goes away or whatever. Like they're not a threat after in this comic. It's just Rasputin pretty much in this comic. So yeah, that's a little bit different. And I mean, yeah, I guess the trope of Nazis is easy to pick for like here's the big bad guys. I don't know if at the time though it was like, I mean, in X-Men they're not killing Nazis in 1993 or whatever. You know what I mean?
True.
It's all you're thinking of like comics of the Golden Age or whatever, where like Captain America's punching Hitler and everybody's
I guess that's why it popped in my head because you were talking about John Bryan being
John Byrne.
Pardon me.
Yes, I don't. He wasn't right. I mean, he was
stuff.
definitely reading comics back then, but he wasn't writing comics in the 50s. And then I mean, you got to remember that takes place in that time period. So, like that, where the Nazis are in this book is in the 40s. So it's like, okay, I mean, it makes sense why that would be going on. It's a convenient place to start. I also like. It starts right away with like, this is just one of the many things that Hellboy's done. He's already like over 50 years old in this comic.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is just one of the stories that we have. And they kind of set that up. Like, this isn't the end all be all. This isn't the, I mean, I guess Rasputin's like the big bad.
Because
he brought him in to the world, but he's not like, this is just like how he got into the world and then a fight that he has. Because, I mean, they allude to, like, back in the 60s or whatever, you know.
Yeah, there were a lot of cool little things we'll get into that I was like, oh, that's interesting that you pull that from.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, since you have you got any notes for the beginning? or
Just mainly, I mean, so it starts off, like you said, it's in 1944, and there's, like, a bunch of soldiers and some of the main characters that are like associated with Hellboy are waiting in I think somewhere outside of England, and there's like some place that they're watching Nazis that they found out are trying to like resurrect the dead.
I was actually confused on this. I was like, wait, because they're in some town that has like a haunted area, and they're like, oh, this is where it's gonna be. But then it ended up being at Stonehenge where the main thing was happening.
Yeah.
Like, because they found out, I guess the Allies thought it was going to be just this one place, but then too late they realized there's two places it could happen, and they were in the wrong one, and one of the places was Stonehenge, and that's where Rasputin and all the Nazis were, and they raised Hellboy in the place where the Allies were from Stonehenge.
Yeah. Which
was a little confusing.
Yeah, that was
I was like,
odd.
Hey, John Byrne, if you're helping with scripting, let's just make this one spot. And where a fight happens or some shit. But yeah, it was like the Allies were in one spot that could be the source of the evil rising, and then it ended up that it was actually Stonehenge where they were supposed to be. Rasputin does some shit, and then the Nazis are like, what happened?
Yeah, they're nothing happened here. We don't see it. He's like, nah, I made a miracle. You just wait and see.
Yeah, you just wait and see. It was like, well, the Reich needs them now. You know? So, well, too bad. Ain't gonna happen, Hitler. So yeah, then Hellboy gets not captured, but taken by the Allies.
They take him, but they kind of sense like the main guy who becomes like his caretaker, Trevor Broom, right?
Just call him Broom.
We'll call him Broom because he can't say. I wouldn't even try to pronounce his actual name.
Yeah. It's German.
Yeah, because he's kind of like he doesn't seem to be like everybody's like he's a demon looking thing, and he's like but he looks like a boy. I would like that. That was the specific. He looks like he's from hell, and he's like but he looks like a boy.
Yeah, that's true. I thought it was funny that a little bit later on in the comics, there's an old lady who calls him Mr. Boy, like Hellboy, like his proper last name was Boy, which I thought was funny.
Who is the Torch of Liberty?
Torch of Liberty is kind of supposed to be like the first Captain America kind of character, but in this Dark Horse world,
because he's not really in the story much. There's only one thing that Hellboy said that Torch of Liberty gave him like his main gun or whatever.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh okay, I guess it's kind of significant, but not enough to where he sticks around.
Yeah, and I've never seen anybody do like a spin-off of him in the comics or anything. So I don't know anything other than what's in this comic about Torch of Liberty, but. So Rasputin does this. Hellboy gets brought into our world, but to the Allies' side because they bring him back in the other place where the Allies were. So then it kind of cuts forward, And you cut to the Hellboy's dad, Professor Broom, and he's like, Hellboy, I need you to come here or whatever. And apparently, this is also something they could have just shown right away. They could have shown the battle. Like they could have had Hellboy be raised like in the movie, like in the same spot as the Nazis, and then the Allies could have fought him and got Hellboy, and then they could have had that battle. I don't know why they didn't, but maybe because it was like two would have been too many pages in the comic, and they're like, we just need to get to the main storyline of this main story. Like they're just trying to do a fast, like here's how Hellboy got here, and then a fast, here's the setup for this story, and then then the story. So they did the fast how Hellboy got here. Then they in the setup for the story, they just had like Broom sitting there in his office and being like, "Oh, Hellboy's on his way," and he's like, "I'm coming, Dad," or whatever, and then or "I'm coming, Dad," and then I don't know what Hellboy sounds like, so I can't do it. But yeah, Professor Broom's sitting there, and he kind of like flashes back to like him walking in the snow and him like thinking to himself like he needs to know this before I go or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, he's like trying to remember some kind of expedition that he went on. Like,
yeah,
it seemed like it 10 months prior.
Yeah,
it wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't that long ago, but it took him a while to get back because it was just him on his way back. So.
Yeah, and somewhere in the Arctic, there's like old ruins and some like creature looking.
Yeah, and Rasputin was sitting there underneath him that looked like a statue, but it was actually Rasputin. And I guess that awakened the power and everything. Like it awakened Rasputin, like him touching what he thought was a statue, but it was Rasputin. And then Rasputin awakened the frogs. And the frogs are like, if you've seen the movie, Samael is supposed to be the frogs in this book. So
yeah, and they start off as cute little frogs. They keep seeing frogs, and then they turn into like big creepy frogs.
I don't know I think the frogs are just omens, like the actual little frogs, and then the big frogs mean like the big one's coming or something. And then the big one comes once the little ones show up. I don't think the little ones actually turn into frogs. I don't know. Did they show them actually turning?
I think
in?
one of them did look at like it started to. Like,
oh, okay, big. Okay, maybe I missed that. But yeah, so it's just like right when Hellboy gets to the office, like Broom was thinking about this trip and like showed Rasputin wake up or whatever, and then all of a sudden he sees frogs. And then you hear like, or whatever. And then like Hellboy runs in and is like, Pops, what's going on?
And he's like, frogs!
Yeah, there's frogs
He's
everywhere.
like literally, like the panel was fun. Is his face like wide-eyed, like, frogs!
Yeah. And then so he, then he like gets his dad's hand or whatever, and his dad's all in shadow. And he pulls him back and he's all like covered in all these crazy lesions or holes or whatever.
Marks.
Yeah. And so that makes it like him paralyzed and dead, I guess, is what it is. And so now he's got to figure out who killed his dad, which is similar to the movie.
Yeah, he pulls his dad in, and it's covered and stuff, and then he goes into the room where his dad was pulled into, and he ends up fighting one of the little frogs. That's where it is. He turns into a big frog creature.
That's right.
And then they start beating the crap out of each other. And one thing I liked about this that was a little cooler was that like the frog's tongue has the things that cause the lesions and burny things on him, and it attacks Hellboy, and it wraps around his left hand, and he's like, "Oh, that really hurts, and it's numb, son of a bitch."
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Oh, that's okay. I'll use my right hand because I don't feel pain on that hand."
Yeah.
Like they kind of like he had a little bit of back.
They have to set it up so you know
he's
what.
Like, I don't know why I have this, but hey, it's cool that I can use it to my advantage. And
yeah. So that's like the first big fight is him fighting that frog thing of his dad. He beats it pretty handedly. There was the first like, son of a bitch. But if in Samael with Samael in the first movie, he has that tongue thing, but it like injects babies in you, doesn't it, or something? Or it like
something like that.
Something like that. There is definitely a egg laying thing.
Yeah, there's some liberties. They went into.
Yeah, they did some liberties for sure, but not in a bad way actually. I mean, I thought the movie did pretty good, like translating that into an interesting character in its own.
And a lot of the stuff in the movie was wasn't CG. It was like physical animatronics. So that's cool.
Yes.
I always appreciate that. But anyway, as far as the comic goes, it was cool when they're fighting. I really like Mike Mignola's art. It's really unique, and like he'll have one or two scenes that are like very vivid, and you can see everything really well. And then as
and
you
then
see
the
the
next
characters,
panel
next
is
one's
like
you see half of a person, and like the rest is like all
black,
dark and black,
and then like a dark red, and then like a dark blue, and
Yeah.
there's only three. There's only three panels or three colors on this panel, and it's divided by a black line, and then another squiggle, and then the panel next to it's perfectly amazing like that. But it feels like everything flows correctly.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
no like jarring art. Like, oh, he didn't like. It's not like he did bad on that panel and is awesome on this panel. It's just like he didn't need to show that detail in this one.
No, you already got it from the main
Yeah.
one. That's what I. So like they're fighting, and you first see the lizard, and then they have a couple panels of them fighting, and you don't see the super detail. But when he goes to shoot him, and it shows him getting shot, and then the next panel is like bones and green muck on the floor. It was a cool picture.
He's got a very cool style. I like to think of it kind of like he shows you what you need kind of thing, but keeps everything else in the shadows, you know? So like if he wants something to be seen, he'll draw it super detail. But if not, then it's cooler to have it in shadow kind of thing. And that's kind of like the Batman animated series where they drew on black paper, or the X-Files where they they started in a dark set and then lit up the areas where they wanted to see, as opposed to a lit set and then, shadowing stuff. So
one of our listeners commented on the holiday special, specifically was talking about like how he likes the way that he draws animals, and so I paid attention to that more in this one.
Oh yeah,
especially because it was cool. Like all the animals are either really cutesy and like detailed, but in his style, or then absolutely grotesquely disgusting.
Yeah,
very like H.P. Lovecraft kind of looking. Which I saw that he.
Well, obviously this monster's supposed to be like Cthulhu or whatever.
Yeah.
It's got like tentacles and stuff. Like it's very Cthulhu-esque. But
yeah, you can see where a lot of the inspiration is drawn from. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, and so now Hellboy knows, okay, there's these frog things. I got to figure out what's going on. He knows, I can't remember how he figures out, but he needs to go to this house.
He calls the head office first. The BPRD.
Oh, that's right. So he calls them, and doesn't he ask like, "Where did my dad go?" Like that's why he figures it out. So he said, "Oh, he went on an expedition to the Arctic with these guys, and these guys were three brothers that took him to where the temple was for the evil guy with Rasputin." So turns out three brothers are part of this family that for like 9 generations have been obsessed with finding this temple and doing expeditions up there and everything. So all of the family members all the men in the family have gone on these crazy expeditions, and some have come back and some haven't, and no one's reached there until now, I guess, with Dr. Broom. So so they go to this house and they're like, "Oh, this place is cursed." And it said that this house originally was like on top of a hill that was surrounded by a lake, and now it's like sunken down almost, or like the back half of it's in the lake.
Yeah.
And it just keeps getting lower and lower.
Cavendish Hall, that's what
it's called, Cavendish Hall. And so yeah, and everybody's like, this place is fucking cursed. Like this is an evil place. So and they don't know why necessarily like this place is here, or how it got cursed or anything. Like everybody in town has not touched it, and the town around it has not even gone up there or talk about it for forever. So no one knows like how it's cursed, why it's cursed, who it's cursed by, any of that kind of stuff. They just know that this weird family went there, and it was like some guy that was a whaler, like I guess found a page on an expedition, found a piece of maybe some like Bible or some shit about these demons that that will like cause the apocalypse, I guess. And he was like, I must find this temple. I don't know if it possessed him or something, or if I don't think he was evil because it's just his family or something, but it consumed him. Like, I must find this stuff.
And then
It's
for some
cool.
reason that carried down
Yeah,
through the family.
and so I think it must have been like what they found was some kind of like curse on the family. And so he built this house on this spot because this is actually where the like god or like the first little god is of that fam or the gods that are going to be raised. And then and then Rasputin will wake up the other gods because there's 7 gods total or something. So he got one of them on Earth, and then he can like raise them up
To pull the others out of whatever dimension.
Yeah, whatever dimension they're in. So so they go there. They're not expecting a full fight. They're just like, we're here. And when I say they, it's his little BPRD team. So it's Hellboy, Abe Sapien, who's dressed like an old man, so you don't know it's him at first.
I liked his disguise.
And then Liz Sherman, who's like, in the movie it's Hellboy's crush, but it's in this it's just his teammate.
Yeah.
Who lights shit on fire. And I liked how they introduced them. Like they did a little 1-page, vignette of who they are, where they were, how they were found, what their power is, that kind of thing. And it was like right when each one was going to do something, it'd be like Liz Sherman, when she was 5, blah 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 blah. And then it'd be like Abe Sapien, when he was found in a vat in the middle of in the back of a hospital that was collapsed or something.
During Lincoln's presidency.
Yeah.
That was like, oh, that's cool. That's why the Abe.
Yeah, that's why they call him Abraham. Yeah. So so they just go to this house like, hey, we got some questions. And it turns out this is like where Rasputin is. This is where the evil god is. This is like where everything's going down. And like the only person there is some old lady who's like the mom of the 3 boys that died, or 3 men that died, taking Professor Broom up to the Arctic. So, how does he confront her? I can't remember.
So they come in and they're definitely Hellboy's definitely a little gruff. He's like, what do you know about this? And she's like, I don't know what they were going after, but y'all are welcome to stay here and we can look more into it tomorrow. You guys go to your rooms. I'm going to retire. She's an old lady who's tired. And so they're like, oh, okay, I guess that'll suffice for now. And so Liz goes to her room. Abe and Hellboy share a room. The old lady goes to her room, and in the old room, she like goes to sit down, and there's a dark figure that like kind of slowly comes out of the corner that we figure out is Rasputin.
Right.
And
he's like promising that she'll get to see her boys again if she helps him, get them.
Yeah, he said that. Oh, he's come sooner than expected. This is gonna make his plans go faster. And he says that I promise you can see your boys again. And then he says, "Hey, boys, come give your mom a good night kiss."
Yeah.
And then that's all you kind of see. And so you figure either something happened to her or something is.
And obviously, when the guys go upstairs and Liz go upstairs, they know like something's going weird at this house. So like Hellboy, I guess Abe is automatically like, I'm gonna dip out and like just go into the water behind the house so Abe Sapien is like a amphibious humanoid, I guess. So he can like swim underwater without having to breathe.
He's got gills.
All that shit. Yeah. So so he can do that, and then Liz can light stuff on fire if she's got like enough time to react or whatever.
She's
I guess pyrotechnic. I don't know. I feel like it's pyropsychic or something like that.
She has pyrotechnic abilities.
Okay, there you go. Sorry. But yeah, so like Hellboy's like, let me go tell Liz, let's like go ask the old lady some more questions or whatever. And he goes into her room and he sees frogs or whatever, right? And she's gone.
Yeah. And she had a butler too, and they were all while they were talking about like, hey, did you notice the butler? Like he looks exactly like some other guy that went on the expedition. They're like, they wouldn't be that stupid to have him in plain sight, would they?
Yeah. And it was.
Yeah.
I think it's because they weren't expecting him, They just thought he's going to be, Hellboy's not going to be here yet, so why bother hiding this dude? And then he shows up and it's like, oh, fuck. But, so that was actually the youngest son, I guess. That was the butler.
Yeah.
And then so Hellboy goes back down after Liz is missing, and Abe's jumped down to the back of the house.
He sees the bunch of little frogs like
Right
around her room, and he busts in, and she's gone. Just her, like, I guess she was gonna light a cigarette or something. That's in the room, and there's just some frogs, and she's gone. So he goes running down the hallway, and he's like,
he's like, I want answers now or whatever, and then he sees that she's turned in. She looks just like his dad was. She's got all these lesions on her body, and she's all like a corpse, basically.
Yeah, and then the butler's like, well, I'm not telling you anything, and then he turns into a big lizard creature,
big frog, big old frog man.
Frog man. So they relate because they look like a cross between.
I mean, the way Mignola draws, it's not so detailed. You can exactly pick out what kind of thing it is. Like as far as, it's something. I mean, it comes from a frog, so it's probably some sort of big frog. But it's not like, oh, that's a monkey, or oh, that's a lizard. It's like, okay, it's a big monster, obviously, and I'm just gonna say it's a frog monster because it came from a frog.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so he fights that one, and that one was fairly easy to kill, right? Or was that the one harder?
That one was harder because he was punching
right.
him and it wasn't doing much. So then he started punching.
The
him with
first one he killed, the one that killed his dad, he was like, that one wasn't too hard, and then this one he was like, oh, this one's a little bit more difficult. Yeah, he had to like punch it with his stone hand a bunch to get it to stop.
Yeah.
And then is that how he killed that one? Because there's two more, right, that he has to fight, or one more?
I think there's one more. I know that they're fighting, and he gets away for a minute, and that's when he sees that Mrs. Cavendish has all the little holes in her, and she's dead too. He's in the room, and he hears a voice, and it's Rasputin's voice, and because he's like, I recognize that voice. That sounds like something from like a long time ago.
Yeah.
And he's like, so Hellboy goes to like reach for his gun, and a bunch of tentacles come up out of the ground and pull him down.
Oh yeah, pull him through not the ground, it's through the house, the bottom of the house.
Wooden.
So it turns out the floorboards are just above like a big cavern under this river or this lake. And so it pulls him down to like, I guess it would be the basement of the house, but it could just be like a cavern, I guess. And in the meantime, Abe Sapien's been like swimming around this whole area, and he found this cavern too. And so he saw the frogmen as well, but now Hellboy got pulled down. So
yeah, and that panel was really cool. I specifically remember that because it was like him being pulled down and Rasputin saying like just a couple little small word blurbs of being like, I summoned you, and the power is in your right hand, and you help me or die.
Right.
And it's just like it's like a all black page with just like a little bit of a tentacle pulling Hellboy down.
Right.
In the center. It was really cool.
Yeah. And so once Hellboy's down there, he sees there's like a big tentacle god that's already like kind of big. It's not gigantic. It can fit into a basement of a house, but like a old Victorian kind of house. So, and Rasputin's like, oh, he's just been getting like healthy on people and everything that was in this lake, because the lake has like nothing in it, completely dead. So he ate everything in the lake, and then random people that they can
either people came down there, or if they were sacrificed. But he didn't really want those anyway. Like he's like, yeah, I'll take it, but I want basically Ragnarok to happen. So
yeah, and I wasn't sure if this tentacle being was the god or one of the gods, or if it's just like the emissary of the gods on Earth, and then it's gonna, help you bring the seven down. But yeah, so basically, and not only does Hellboy have to fight everything, like the big monster and the frogmen and everything, he's got to fight, or he sees that Liz is taken by Rasputin. So he's like, and I thought I was going to have to use you, but actually I could just use her power, because she's got like this fire power that I can just, absorb or whatever, and then use that to power my spell, I guess, to open up the fifth dimension or whatever it is.
yeah.
So
and you think Hellboy is like tired of his bullshit talk. I like Hellboy has little quips, and he's a little gruff, and he just pulls out his gun and shoots Rasputin in the head.
Yeah.
And then Rasputin's like head kind of like starts to like flop over, but then pulls back together, and
Yeah, and he's like, it's not gonna work. um, yeah, and Hellboy's like, man, I've seen lots of things take. I've never seen anything bounce back from one of these bullets or whatever.
Yeah, he's like, why are you still standing?
Yeah. and then what? Hellboy has to fight. Is it the Frogman again, or is it the big tentacle monster?
It's the big tentacle monster.
That's right. So, he's fighting that thing while Rasputin's doing the spell and whatnot. And he's getting the shit beat out of him by the tentacle thing. He's not very.
No, and this is one of the cool things that I specifically that kind of gave you more of his backstory a little bit, that he's been around for a while, because he said that he was really surprised at how bad he was getting the shit kicked out of him.
Yeah.
Because he had all these talismans in his pockets.
Yeah.
From all corners of the world, and they're supposed to like help protect him.
Yeah, they're supposed to like ward off or like evil and stuff, and they weren't doing anything.
Why is nothing working?
Yeah, some of this should be doing something. So, but yeah, so he's fighting this thing. None of his normal charms and stuff do anything.
Yeah, all while Rasputin is doing the like ceremony and also telling Hellboy like, give up and join me, or I'm gonna take you out of this world. I brought you in, I can take you out.
Yeah, and so in the meantime, though, you see like this dude appear, and the dude is he's like the original guy, like the original dad, like the great granddad that was the whaler.
Yeah.
He kind of appears on the stairwell.
He appears in the stairwell with Abe Sapien, because Abe was like Abe had gone down to the water, and found that there was nothing there. He was like, "Oh, there's weird. There's like nothing is alive here, but like I feel like there's been death here recently. Like it's weird." And then he stumbles into a cavern, and he stumbles into the body of the first one.
Of the great
yeah, and then like you just kind of see the panel, like the eyes light up and the panel goes black. You don't know what happens.
Yeah, you don't know what happens. So he appears with Abe Sapien on the stairwell, and like it's like he's behind Abe. So what they insinuate later on is that he had like possessed Abe's body.
Yeah,
but I guess because it was hard to show that in the comic back then. They had to show like there's the guy behind Abe, like he's a puppeteer kind of or whatever.
Yeah.
And so what while this is going on, so Hellboy's fighting, he's losing. It's not looking too good for Hellboy. Liz might die from Rasputin taking all her power to open up these gates, and Rasputin's doing this big all cosmic spell where he's like saying all the demons' names, and he's like, "Come on," and it's cutting back and forth to them. And it's cool because the demons look like, and they did a good job in the Hellboy movie of like showing what they look like. But so if you've ever seen the movie, it's very similar to that. But like these big chunks of either rock or ice crystals in space, in like a space vacuum kind of, setting. And they're like just floating around and like bumping into each other and shit. And then like in the movie, they're more like ice, because then once he starts doing the spell, they start to break apart, and you can see they're like big tentacle monsters inside of that. But in the comic, they were more like opaque, so you couldn't see through them. They were like more rockish, I guess. But I assume it was like the same thing inside of them. Like they're gonna start breaking apart soon as they come to Earth. And then all of a sudden, there was a harpoon right through the middle of Rasputin. And so I guess what happened was Abe Sapien's possessed body just threw that harpoon right into him, took him out. Took Rasputin out.
Yeah, like there all this like the energy and stuff starts spewing out of him. It was a really cool, bright.
Yeah.
For dark and grimy as it is, it was very bright.
And I think obviously Hellboy shot him in the head before, and that didn't do anything. So why would a harpoon hurt him now? But I think the idea was he had taken so much of Liz's energy that he wasn't able to contain the energy once he was like speared through.
Yeah.
And so then that energy from her like burned him up or whatever. And so then everything's finished except Hellboy's still fighting the big demon. And he's like, "Hey, wait, I got a grenade still from like the last thing I did 4 years ago or whatever." And he
just like finds it in his pocket.
Yeah.
Like, oh, hey.
Yeah, check out this grenade. So then he throws it in the monster's mouth, and then monster explodes, dies. And he's like, "It's a hard day's work," or whatever the fuck he says. Something quippy. And then Oh, he said, "Gonna be sore in the morning," which he says that in the movie, which I thought was fun that they did that at the end of the movie. Right after he blows up the bad guy in the end of the movie, he's like, "Gonna be sore in the morning." So, so I was happy that they took that from the book. And then yeah, so that's pretty much it. Then it just wraps up.
Yeah, they're for the most part. Though there was a couple more quips, like Hellboy told Rasputin to go to hell when he was on. He's like, "No, hell's coming or here."
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the one of the panels I thought was interesting when like the creatures were starting to break through their things. Like it showed like a spaceship and some alien creatures in the spaceship. Like, oh man, what's going on? Oh, those. Whoever's doing that on Earth must be crazy. Like it was just kind of like some space cops or something.
Yeah,
like, that's crazy that they're doing that. I ain't touching that.
I ain't touching that shit.
It was a weird.
Yeah,
random
it was weird. Maybe it was like maybe he was intending to have some kind of extraterrestrial thing happen later on or something. But as far as I know, that never goes anywhere. Like you don't see those guys again. But that's pretty much it. It wraps up and we're done.
Yeah, there's a Rasputin's dying. The creatures come. Hellboy's fighting the creature. He blows it up.
Yeah, and then it's like, well, good. That was
yeah, that was crazy. Liz and Abe don't remember much because Liz was knocked out and Abe was possessed. So they're like, oh, was that hard?
Yeah.
How did you?
Hellboy's like,
Hellboy
look at Hellboy.
He's
totally beat up, and they're like, oh, I guess you had a hard time. He's like, yeah, par for the course.
Whatever.
Yeah,
so, their banter is fun.
Yeah,
and then there was a little cliffhanger panel. There's like a castle in the middle of I don't know where, and it shows like some Nazi symbols on the wall, and then the three people that were like, I guess with Rasputin back in
like the three main Nazis
frozen in ice or something, and like it cracks or something like they're coming out to help or something. Like you could tell the story is like to be continued.
Right.
Bum, bum, bum.
So yeah, that's the first Hellboy trade. First story. There was two little stories at the end of this. I don't think we need to talk about them fully, but there was I guess they were like the leading up to the first issues of this series.
I wrote down the one is from 1993 San Diego Comic-Con. It's the first like little strip he did of Hellboy basically. And that's Hellboy fights a giant. He sees a dog.
Yeah.
And it turns into a giant.
He's in like the middle of nowhere, and then there's like a diner. Like he's in the middle of a desert. And there's like a diner, and on the diner there's like a scarab and a Nazi symbol, but I think it's supposed to be like the like whatever the before Nazis had it. It's the Middle Eastern symbol or whatever. I don't know. It's supposed to be like that, and so then he sees a dog and he's like, "Oh, cute pup, what are you doing here?" And then all of a sudden it turns into Anubis, and he has to fight Anubis, the god dog, and then and then he takes him on, no problem. He's Hellboy. So, and then the second one. What was that one?
It's the guy there's like a guy with a Nazi symbol carved into his forehead.
This one is so this is like the most fun like sci-fi weird adventure from the 50s kind of storyline. But there's a Nazi head in a jar that controls a giant monkey, a giant gorilla.
Yeah.
And it's like doing like I don't know, it's like taking the life force juice out of a girl. It's like the monkey's got a syringe, and it's like he's like, "We need your life juice for the boss or whatever." And then Hellboy's like, "Don't touch her with that," whatever. Then they fight, and then Hellboy wins, and then it's pretty straightforward. But it's just supposed to be like a funny, like kind of 50s sci-fi-ish weird thing.
Yeah.
But it was fun. So what's fun is they actually released those toys of the big jar or the big gorilla with the jar head.
Oh, nice.
Nazi. And I had that, and that thing was worth a bunch of money for a long time, and I sold it when it was worth money. But I wish I still had it because I was like, that was a cool toy. But what are you gonna do? So, yeah, that's pretty much it. What would you give this one, John?
I liked it. It was having that little bit of backstory, but then seeing it translate like where it came from the page and being like, oh wow, like they didn't really have to do much of this story. Like that's a solid freaking story.
Well, it's weird because you're like, oh, I see exactly what they did, and they also fleshed out a bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
they had the love story in the movie. They had to draw out like what Rasputin was doing behind the scenes, kind of thing.
Yeah,
like where they had to go, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think they brought like, I mean, the movie is a good, like the first movie is a good interpretation of this first comic,
Definitely.
which is fun. So what number would you give it, John?
I liked it. I would definitely reread it, and I definitely I want to read some more Hellboy stories. Now that I've confirmed that is a good starting point, and it's a good.
It only gets better from there because
Yeah,
John Byrne don't write the rest of them. So
I know, I know some of the other side characters have seen.
not that John Byrne's a bad writer. John Byrne had his time and place. Just this is not. It doesn't feel like Hellboy later on. Like if you read other Hellboy stories first and then go back and read this, you're like, whoa, there's a lot of text bubbles in this or whatever. So yeah,
I would probably give it a 7.
7. All right. Yeah, I'd give this a 7 too. It's a good solid read. Good place to start. Good hey, you like Hellboy or you like kind of weird, fun books? Try this out.
Well, that's why I kind of said this beforehand. That I feel like Hellboy was written for you.
For me,
yeah. You like Russian history. You like
yes.
Kind of occulty horror elements and things a lot.
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny is I was telling John this before we started, but so I never read Hellboy before I saw the movie Hellboy because the movie came out when I was in high school. And at that time, I did not read comics. I liked the idea of comics, and I liked Batman and stuff from the animated series and all that. I just never. I lived in Hawaii, and there was no comic book store in Hawaii, so ergo, no comics. And so, so I just I went to go see the movie. Didn't know what it was. Didn't know it was a comic book character or anything. Just cold. Go see it. I was like, this movie is fucking awesome. It's like a fun. Smart aleck, main character who's occultic. There's spells and weird shit. It's Russian. It's all this weird stuff I was into. And yeah, so it was right down my alley. And I told everybody, you gotta see this movie. And everybody else was like, this is a fucking weird movie. I'm like, no, it's a perfect movie. It's great. Even my wife, I made her watch it and she was like, this is a weird movie, Matt. And I'm like, no, it's fun. It's a fun movie. You're weird. You're the weird one. So, but yeah, when was the first time you saw the movie?
I think I probably saw it with my parents.
Oh, that would be a weird one.
At the time, my folks really liked it.
I would say, yeah, they might like it back then.
Yeah, they're not as so much into
occultic stuff.
We'll say pop culture stuff now.
Oh, okay.
But they definitely liked it at the time, and yeah, because I remember my dad going around being like, "Oh man, I like Ron Perlman and Hellboy, blah blah blah."
Yeah, I'd say the only thing you could take out of the movie and be I'd be fine with that would be the love story part of it. They could just make Liz, a badass or whatever. But
yeah,
but yeah, so great book, good read, good
great art.
Read. Yeah,
I definitely like that.
And the good thing about it is all the Hellboy trades. There's no overarching storyline. There's no
you can pick it up
70 issues of Hellboy. It's you can pick up a trade, and as long as you know that Hellboy is, if you read the first trade and you know what he is and who Abe is and who Liz is, you can pick up any other Hellboy trade, and they're always just 4 to 6 issues long.
That's awesome.
He never does long runs. It's all just here's a 6-issue story arc. Here's another 6-issue.
That's super
story
fun.
Arc. Yeah, so all of them are self-contained. They all wrap up their storyline in their trade.
Nice.
So it works really well for someone who, might not be the biggest comic, enthusiast where they're like, where the fuck do I start? And, is it Batman issue 1? It's that's not the original one. That's the one from last year. So, that's actually Batman 786. And you have to, it's this big thing. You got to figure out what issue you were on. So this is, whatever Hellboy is, if you start on issue 1, it's one of that storyline. And you can just buy the 6 issues of that. And it'll say 1 of 6. So now I just got to buy these 6 issues and I'm good to go. So, and same with BPRD. There's no 70 issues BS or whatever. I mean, there might total be over 100 issues total of BPRD, as a whole. But there's always 6-issue miniseries that's how they run it.
That's cool because then if you can pick and choose if you like some. But you were kind of saying there's not really any bad.
There are no bad ones. I've kind of let's see, maybe around 2009 is when I kind of stopped. I had to stop buying comics for a little bit because of money and shit, and so I dropped off Hellboy and stuff like that. But I mean, I read BPRD all like from the trades of the original stuff into like all the 2000s, late 2000s, and none of it was bad. It only got better. So, and even like Abe Sapien has his own little mini series stuff that goes on. There's a Lobster Johnson series, which is funny. I don't know if you saw. They had a Hellboy dressed as Lobster Johnson for like Halloween.
Yeah, someone
which
posted
was very
on it.
cute.
It was very fun.
Yeah, someone posted that on our Facebook. So, pick it up, guys, guys and gals, if you like it, and let us know if you like it, and hopefully, you can pick up any of them now and just enjoy it.
Yeah,
so.
I have one last question actually.
What's that?
So all the before each one there gives you the little cover art piece, which they're always beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
There was a little circle character of a woman and a gorilla in all of those as well that never pop up in any of the stories.
A woman and a gorilla.
Yeah, do you remember?
No. Let me see if I can.
It's like a question for another time.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to. We'll bring it up in the next recording. But yeah, I'll have to look into that because if it is, it might be referencing something else.
It may be from. I just thought it was weird, especially since this is like the first run.
Yeah,
and I don't think it didn't look like.
Well, you got to remember the trades came out later too.
That's true.
So that might be.
It didn't look like the same gorilla and woman from like the little one shot in there.
Maybe that's what it's supposed to be though.
Maybe, but it didn't look like the same ones. So
okay.
He didn't have like diodes.
Well, I'll look into it.
Cool. Well, anyway,
see if we can figure it out.
It was good. I'm glad we read it.
All right, cool. Well, so we both give it a 7. Sounds good to me.
Yep.
Everybody else, have a good day. Have a good week. Have a good whatever.
We'll catch you next time.
See you.
Adios.
Bye. Well, folks, hope you enjoyed that episode.
If you did and you'd like to follow us on social media, our Facebook is Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, and our Instagram is @Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, all one word.
And be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more recommendations to add to your weekly pull list.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.